Have you ever looked at history and felt like you were watching a movie rerun? Maybe not exactly the same, but, familiar themes, similar kinds of events just cropping up again and
Oh,
again.
definitely. People talk about that spiral movement of history all the time. Things repeat, but maybe on a different level.
Exactly. But what if it's more than just a feeling or coincidence? What if there's a kind of, underlying structure, maybe even numerical patterns involved?
That's a fascinating thought.
Well, today we're diving deep into exactly that. We're exploring this concept called parallel providential periods. It comes from Reverend Sun Myung Moon, who proposed that specific numerical patterns really underpin the course of human history.
Okay.
So our mission for this deep dive is to get into the core ideas from our source, which is chapter3.pdf, and unpack the why and the how behind these historical repetitions, according to this perspective.
Right, so we're looking at a specific framework here.
Exactly. It's a really unique way of looking at the forces that might be shaping our world, going beyond just surface observations.
And this framework, presented in the source, sees these parallels not as random chance, but as part of what it calls the Providence of Restoration.
Providence of Restoration. Okay.
Yeah, think of it like a divine plan working towards a fixed goal. But here's the really interesting part. When key people, central figures, fail in their part of the plan,
Which happens.
yeah, the whole thing doesn't just stop. Instead, a new providential period kicks off, designed specifically to restore through indemnity what was lost or failed.
Restore through indemnity, like making up for something.
Precisely. And this need to make up for the past often leads to similar situations or challenges reappearing. That's where those historical echoes come from, according to this view.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. These parallel providential periods. They aren't just history repeating itself randomly. They are distinct times that somehow mirror the core challenges of earlier times, all driven by this bigger purpose of restoration.
Exactly that. The idea is that human failure doesn't derail the ultimate plan, but it does create a kind of debt, a condition that needs to be met again, often under similar circumstances.
So it's not like the slate is wiped clean. The consequences kind of build up.
That's a good way to put it. It's all about this concept of indemnity. When a central figure fails, God, according to the source, chooses another.
Right.
But the new person isn't starting from scratch. They inherit the unfinished business. They have to make these spiritual reparations, the source calls it, restoring through indemnity for the conditions left unfulfilled from previous periods.
Okay, conditions from the past.
Yes, these are called vertical indemnity conditions.
Yeah.
Think of them stretching back through time. And the new figure has to fulfill them in their own time, which is termed horizontal restoration through indemnity.
So it's like inheriting a spiritual task list from history.
Kind of, yeah. And this buildup, this accumulation of unfulfilled conditions passed down, is exactly why each new parallel period, while it mirrors the past, also tends to differ in scale or intensity. The challenge often grows.
So history gets another shot, but maybe the difficulty ramps up. Interesting. Now, the source also mentions these parallels show up in 3 different ways, linked to stages of growth.
It maps it out quite clearly. First, there's the formation stage, which involves symbolic parallels, like the initial blueprints. This corresponds to what's called the age of the providence to lay the foundation for restoration.
Symbolic parallels, like setting the pattern.
Exactly. Then comes the growth stage, showing image parallels. These are meant to restore those symbolic patterns more concretely. This happens in the age of the providence of restoration.
Okay, from blueprint to a clearer picture.
Right. And finally, there's the completion stage, which presents substantial parallels. This is about bringing the whole thing to a tangible fulfillment in the age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration.
So concept, then image, then reality. It's quite a progression.
Yeah. And it's not random how these parallels line up. The source points to 2 main structuring factors. First, establishing the foundation of faith. This involves the central figure, a specific object or condition they need to offer, and crucially, a set numerical period of indemnity.
Ah, the numbers again.
Yes, and the second factor is the indemnity condition to remove the fallen nature, which is needed to build the foundation of substance. These 2 things working together mean the parallel periods often have similar lengths and are shaped by these repeated efforts, these dispensations, to restore the foundation for the Messiah.
It paints a picture of a very ordered, almost mathematically structured history underneath the surface chaos.
So your idea, yes. A deep conditional consistency.
Okay, this brings up a big question the source addresses. If there's this fixed goal, this plan, Why has it taken so long? Why has the providence of restoration been prolonged all the way from Adam's time through Jesus' day and apparently even continuing towards a second coming?
That's a central point. The explanation lies in what the text calls the principle of predestination. God's ultimate will is seen as absolute, it will happen. But who gets to fulfill it, or when it gets fulfilled by a specific person, that's conditional. It depends on human responsibility.
So God's plan is set, but our part in it isn't guaranteed.
Exactly. If the chosen individual fails their part, God doesn't give up on the goal. He simply chooses someone else, the work continues, but the timeline gets extended. The providence is prolonged.
Right. Does the source give any examples of this?
It does. It even suggests that, based on the principle of creation, seeing God is related to the number 3. Often up to 3 attempts are allowed for a specific goal. Think about the line from Adam's family, then Noah's, then Abraham's, or in Israelite history, King Saul, then David, then Solomon, regarding establishing the kingdom and temple. Each failure led to a prolongation.
3 chances. Interesting pattern. And this ties back to those numerical indemnity periods you mentioned. They seem really important in this whole process.
Absolutely critical. The source explains these periods are needed to restore certain numbers like 12, 4, 21, and 40. These numbers are seen as representing perfect divine qualities that humanity was meant to embody, but which got defiled by Satan because of the fall.
So the periods are about reclaiming those numbers, symbolically.
Precisely. It's about setting a condition of a specific duration to separate from Satan's influence and restore the original value associated with that number. Let's maybe look at some specifics from the source.
Yeah, let's do that. Where does the number 12 fit in?
Okay, so 12. The source traces this back to Adam and Eve. They were meant to fulfill a foundation involving 4 key positions, each passing through 3 stages of growth. 4 times 3 gives 12. It represents a kind of completed harmony. When that original plan was disrupted, history had to work to restore this number. We see echoes of this in things like Noah taking 120 years notice the 12 to build the ark. Moses' life spanned 120 years in the context of restoring Canaan. And there was a 120-year period from Abraham's calling until Jacob purchased the birthright. It's like history keeps striving to establish that 12-based foundation.
Right. I see the repetition. What about the number 4?
The number 4 relates to completing the 4 positions needed for a stable foundation, like passing through 3 growth stages to reach the 4th stage, God's direct dominion. When this was compromised, periods based on 4 or 40 often became necessary for indemnity.
40, like 4 times 10.
Or
just...
Well, the source often highlights 40 specifically. Think of Noah's 40-day flood judgment. Moses fasted for 40 days, twice. Jesus fasted for 40 days. The spies took 40 days to scout Canaan. Each represents a period of separation, trial, or purification needed to establish a new foundation or condition.
Okay, so 40 days seems like a recurring trial period. Then there's the number 21. Where does that come from?
This one's derived according to the source. It combines the number of heaven, 3, and the number of earth, 4, which sum to 7, a number of completion. Since creation involves 3 stages of growth, you multiply 7 by 3, giving 21.
Ah, okay. 3 times 7.
Right. So when this needed restoration, we see 21 base periods, like Noah sending out the dove 3 times over 21 days total. Jacob worked for 21 years in Haran, 3 7-year periods.
Right, for Leah, Rachel, and the flocks.
Exactly. And on a larger scale, the source points to Israel's 210-year exile in Babylon. That's 21 times 10. And later, the papacy's 210-year period of captivity and return related to Avignon. These mark crucial periods for restoration after failure.
That scaling up by 10 seems important. Does that happen with the number 40 too? You mentioned 40-day periods?
Yes, absolutely. The number 40 itself is explained as the 4 positions of the foundation, each needing to pass through 10 stages or levels within the growing period, 10 representing unity. So 4 times 10 is 40. We see many 40-based periods. Noah's ark resting for 40 days before the dove. Moses spent 40 years in Pharaoh's palace, then 40 years in Midian, then led the Israelites for 40 years in the wilderness. 3 distinct 40-year indemnity periods.
Wow. His life was really structured by that number.
According to this interpretation, yes. And here's where the scaling really comes in. The source talks about 2 types of 40-day or 40-year periods, but also highlights how they can be multiplied by 10 or even 100. So you get 400-year periods, or even 4,000 years.
4,000 years, like
the 400 years of indemnity from Noah until Abraham, the 400 years of slavery for the Israelites in Egypt, and most grandly, the approximately 4,000 biblical years calculated from Adam to the time of Jesus, all seen as vast 40-base periods of preparation and indemnity.
That scale is really something. You also briefly mentioned something about horizontal restoration carried out vertically. How does that work?
Ah, yes. That's a fascinating concept for speeding things up, essentially. It means that in some cases, God could treat successive central figures like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as if they were one person fulfilling a condition across their combined lives.
So Jacob could complete something Abraham started.
In a sense, yes. The condition could be fulfilled vertically across generations, instead of requiring one person to live an impossibly long time or needing many horizontal repetitions. The source links this to the title, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, signifying this generational continuity in fulfilling the providence.
Okay, that helps bridge some gaps. So we have the core ideas, parallel periods, indemnity, human responsibility, these key numbers. How does the source actually map this onto the big picture of history? Where do we see these patterns playing out across the ages?
Right, this is where it all comes together. The source traces these parallels through the three major ages we mentioned earlier.
The foundation, restoration, and prolongation ages.
Exactly. Let's start with the age of the providence to lay the foundation for restoration. This is characterized by those symbolic parallels, the initial blueprints.
Okay.
The source identifies the period from Adam to Noah as 10 generations, roughly 1,600 years, a foundational block. Then, from Noah to Abraham, another 10 generations, this time a 400-year period. We already touched on how Abraham's family then had to fulfill key indemnity numbers 120, 40, 21 years vertically across Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob due to Abraham's own failures. This sets the initial symbolic template.
Right, establishing the pattern.
Then we move to the age of the Providence of Restoration. This features image parallels, which are seen as restoring or reenacting the symbolic patterns of the first age.
Okay, so mirroring that first age, what periods are highlighted here?
First, a crucial 400-year period of slavery in Egypt. This is presented as an image parallel to that foundational period from Noah to Abraham, for instance. After the Exodus, there's the 400-year period of the Judges, running from when the Israelites entered Canaan up until King Saul is enthroned, another 400-year block. Then comes the 120-year period of the United Kingdom under King Saul, David, and Solomon. This 120 years mirrors that earlier 120-year vertical period in Abraham's lineage. And remember, Saul's failure. It's noted as prolonging the temple building.
Right, delaying things.
Following the United Kingdom split, there's a 400-year period of the divided kingdoms of North and South, again echoing earlier 400-year spans.
Lots of 400-year periods.
Indeed. Then comes the 210-year period of Israel's exile and return, covering the Babylonian captivity and the subsequent rebuilding. This parallels Jacob's 21 years scaled up.
Ah, the 21 connection.
Exactly. And finally, leading up to Jesus, there's a 400-year period of preparation for the advent of the Messiah. Each of these periods in this second age is seen as an image reflecting and restoring a corresponding period from the first symbolic age.
It's incredibly detailed. And then the third age.
The age of the prolongation of the Providence of Restoration. This is where we see substantial parallels, which are understood as restoring the patterns from the second age, the image age, but often on a larger, potentially more global scale.
Okay, so this brings us closer to, well, more recent history.
Relatively speaking, yes. It starts with the 400-year period of persecution under the Roman Empire, lasting until Christianity was officially recognized. This is seen as a substantial parallel to the Israelites' 400 years of slavery in Egypt.
Persecution mirroring slavery.
Oh, okay. Following that, another 400-year period, this time of regional church leadership, running from Christianity becoming the state religion up to the time of Charlemagne's coronation as Holy Roman Emperor. This parallels the 400 years of the judges in Israel. Then, mirroring the United Kingdom of Israel, there's a 120-year period of the Christian Empire, specifically the Carolingian Empire under Charlemagne and his immediate successors, before it divided.
The 120 pattern again.
Yes. After its division, we see another 400-year period, this time of the divided kingdoms of East and Western Europe, think the Holy Roman Empire in France, lasting until the papacy moved to Avignon. This substantially parallels the 400 years of Israel's divided kingdoms.
Okay, that parallel is quite striking.
It continues. There's then a 210-year period of papal exile and return, encompassing the Avignon papacy and the Great Schism, lasting until the eve of the Protestant Reformation. This is seen as substantially paralleling Israel's 210-year exile and return.
The 210 pattern, right?
Exactly. And according to the source, this leads into the final major period outline, another 400-year period, this time of preparation for the second advent of the Messiah, starting from the Protestant Reformation and continuing onwards, again, substantially paralleling the 400 years of preparation before Jesus' first advent.
Wow. When you lay it all out like that, based on the source, it's an incredibly precise and detailed framework. It's not just saying history repeats, but that it follows this very structured progression.
A progression governed by this idea of divine providence, human responsibility, these recurring numerical periods, and these very specific parallel events across different ages.
The implication really is quite profound. It suggests that individual or collective failures aren't just historical footnotes. They actually shape the future by creating these conditions that need to be revisited, often prolonging the whole process.
That's the core message. It posits this deep underlying order and purpose behind historical cycles that might otherwise seem chaotic or just random. History, in this view, is constantly striving through these repetitions and indemnities towards a final completion.
It certainly gives you a different lens for looking at the past, and maybe even the present. This deep dive has really laid out a unique perspective. So, as you, our listener, reflect on all this, what really stands out to you about this grand narrative?
Yeah, how does this framework resonate?
Does thinking about history through these cycles of indemnity and restoration change how you view past events? Or maybe how you think about humanity's path forward? Does recognizing patterns like these, if you accept the premise, give us a different sense of responsibility for our own time, knowing our choices could echo in future periods? Something to think about.